Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports. Today is what? January 31st, 2024. Benny, is the last day of the month. Tomorrow will be another month. But this will still be Ben and Barry on football.
Right. This is also the officially the last day you can wish somebody Happy New Year.
Is it really?
Now I'm saying actually it's unofficial because there's two schools of thought. You say Happy New Year to people when you first see them in January for the first week or two. And then after that, like if I hadn't seen you, since Christmas and I see you today, should I still say Happy New Year? Does it matter?
Well, I think that you
Because
can.
people are going to be saying it in March.
I think you can never really go wrong by saying Happy New Year to somebody because you're wishing them happy something.
Well, that's true.
Now.
Yeah, but when does it cease to be a new year?
Well, that's probably the question. Now, interesting that you say that because let me show you something real quick. This is pinned to the top of my page.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I'm still saying Happy New Year.
That's fine. It's just like it's two ways to look at it. It's the first time I saw you in this particular year, therefore I should say Happy New Year to you. However, when does it cease being a new year? Like when is 2024 not new anymore?
Well, that sounds like a question I'd like to ask my favorite astrophysicist,
Neil deGrasse.
deGrasse. I love that guy. That's my man. Yeah, I'm sure he'd have a 12-page explanation.
Yeah, he'll probably say the New Year is actually April 1st.
You know what I mean? Which galaxy?
And we're all early.
Which galaxy are you being relative to here? You know what I mean?
Right.
And time is relative. I think Einstein, well, he said something was relative. In any event, what's really relative then is the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. Because we have two approaches. We're going to just play with something because I want people to remember this is a study. If this rankings is anything, it's just a study. You don't.
Right.
I didn't discover them myself. Oh, there's gold. No, it's just but nobody was really tracking it and focused on it and seeing how it worked relative to wins and losses. So that's what I do. And so we've been doing this now for a number of years. And so we kind of know the ups and downs, the vicissitudes, as they might say, of a net point ranking, because we know that generally it's not 100% relative to predicting matchups.
Right.
It's some level, below that. I think if I remember correctly, we were averaging about 63 to 64%, which for the basic statistics, I believe is excellent. It's great. Excellent, probably a word because that's implies somebody did something. It just is what it is. It's just extremely interesting. You know what I mean? Intriguing, to me, and that's why I track it. But the Chiefs this season are probably one of those teams whose season averages and recent averages have a pretty wide change.
Okay.
Like they were playing at this level up to, week 17 or whatever, 18, and then they started playing at this level.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, everybody's just raising their game. I read a headline today about my Niners that said the rumor is that they're considering sitting down. Chase was Young, what's his name?
Chase Young.
Chase Young, sitting him down. It was like he been loafing. He out there loafing. And I've seen some video of him when he's supposed to be holding the edge. He's just getting all blocked up. You know what I mean?
Wait a minute. You're telling me that you're hearing rumors that they're not going to start Chase Young
Yes, sir.
in the Super Bowl?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. Wow. All right, Ben, let's take a quick look here at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. Now, again, this tracks the numbers straight through to their last game. So there are a number of teams whose last game was in the regular season, and some were, playoff teams, but it tracks them through the last game. And interesting, Baltimore is still number one in average net points. We talk about vicissitudes of the ranking, relative to wins and losses. Dallas, Buffalo, all in that top 5 group. And when you look at San Francisco at 10.5 average net points, now that's plus 10.5. It means they're averaging beating team by 10.5 points. And then you look down and you see the 5th place Kansas City Chiefs averaging 5.3 net points. So they're beating team by an average of 5.3 net points. Now, when you go over to the points for category, average points for, Dallas is still number one, So it's interesting that I hear so much about Dak Prescott and whether, this works or that works. It's like, again, these boys averaging 30 points a game, Whatever their other issues are, that's not one of them. But San Francisco's coming in at 28.9. Miami, Baltimore, Detroit, all those playoff teams are right there in that range. And we normally know to go down at least to 8. And you'll see most of your playoff teams just in looking at the rankings. But Kansas City is down at 15th place in scoring, averaging 22.1 points per game. That's a pretty wide, change for a team that when you go to the next column, APA, average points against, and again, that's your defensive scoring stat, averaging. Baltimore in first place. None of the first place teams are still in. Strangely, 16.2 is what they average giving up per game. But right behind them is Kansas City at 16.8. Again, this is one of the best Kansas City defenses that we've seen in a bit. I'd say at least 5 years. And the Niners are right behind them at 18.4. Points per game. So there you got both teams there. Now when you go over to average turnover differential, ATOD, San Fran is 3rd at plus.
Or trying to determine which team you think should be favored, which obviously later on we're going to talk about which team is favored in reference to net points. That's pretty clear to see that San Francisco has the edge there. But if I consider turnover differential being a wash and points for being sort of kind of true when you look at the Niners, but not necessarily recently true for Kansas City, and how close the defenses are in reference to average points allowed, I would have to say that the team that should come out on top would be the team that's able to impose their will defensively better on the other team.
Well, impose their will, eh?
Right.
See what he got out of stats, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. In other words, Kansas City's defense is in 2nd place. San Francisco's is in 3rd. So they're letting up or allowing very close to the same amount of points per game. San Francisco has consistently, over the course of the season, been scoring more points than Kansas City. But I would venture to guess, and I don't have this in front of me, I don't know if you worked it out yet or not, recently, Kansas City should be higher on that board. Now, this is the board that takes into consideration the entire season.
Exactly.
But if we only look at the last say 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, could be a little bit different. So the closeness in the defense and the amount of points that each defense has allowed over the course of the season tells me there's more consistency, close consistency for both teams. Therefore, the team that is able to actually impose their will on the other team should win the game.
All right, let's go to the next set of stats. All right. Turnover differential also here is Kansas City. They were down here for something, 25th place or negative 0.5. So it really wasn't a wash. That could
I was looking. Oh, you know what? I was looking at a different category then. Yeah, that's not nearly a wash. That leans toward San Francisco even more as far as I'm concerned. But again, defensively is the difference.
Well, let's look at the recency biased statistics. Last three: average net points, average points for, points against, and turnover differential, where we basically average the last 3 weeks into the total number to sort of weight it with the momentum that has been created within the last 3 weeks. So when we looked at the average net points, average that in for the last 3 weeks, and then average that into the season, this is how it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City.
Different. A whole lot different. So you cannot ignore what teams have done over the course of the season, but you surely cannot ignore what's been done recently. And I'm one to always say, a lot of times the team that wins the Super Bowl is the team that catches fire last and holds on to it. The team that builds momentum through the end of the season and through the playoffs and comes in hot is usually the team that takes the prize.
Well, remember you were talking about defense?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't make it blue. Here's my Niners. 22nd.
Right.
24.3 points per game.
Right. They gave up 21 to the Packers. They gave up 31 to the Lions. That'll do it.
Kansas City still at 13.7.
Right. They didn't give up as many points. They were in low-scoring games. So you got a team playing in high-scoring games and team playing in low-scoring games. Doesn't necessarily mean that one defense is better than the other. It's just average net points.
Well, now you know where this stands. To me, it adds more intrigue when you start to look at the coach. When we're watching the game, we're thinking about the coaching matchups and, you know, how is San Fran going to offset what their recent performance has been, you know, relative to that Kansas City. Now, interestingly, Benny, they're averaging 23.3 points per game. We're giving up 24.3 points per game. So it's pretty much a wash there. However, we're averaging 26 points per game, and their defense is only giving up 13. So this is going to be where the will imposing has to come from. You know, because with San Fran. Well, we'll talk a little bit about it, the way how we've been playing recently, but that adds a little bit of intrigue. You said wash on the turnover differential. You're absolutely right there. Both at plus 0.7. So even that turned around when you added in the momentum kicker for the net points. So it is what it is, you know. My Niners, you know, the defense. What did I just say to you? They're talking about sitting down.
I don't think that's going to happen, first of all. It's just talk.
Okay. Well, it's a rumor. That's all I can say. But I will say again, I've seen watching just NFL films and different shows in the morning and stuff. Because now they don't have a lot of games to talk about, so they're really getting into the film study. You know what I mean? The blocking scheme, the blah blah blah, and they're showing him getting taken out of plays. What can I say? I saw it. I synced it. Anywho, that's what that is, Benny. So we can move on from the net point power rankings. You have the website right there. This will all be up at the website. And we just want people to know exactly, where people are. It is what it is. That's my squad, my beloved Niners. And it hurts my heart to see the defense down there, you know. So there you go. So Benny, when you take a look at the original set of statistics, the net point rankings, you said it was pretty evident. The bias plus is where we take a look at the differential, and it favors the team with the more net points. So the 49ers had the more, and the net point analysis using the full range of numbers, unadulterated, straight up. And so that's how that comes out. The bias plus 9.6 favors the 49ers. But Ben, tell us a little bit about the games that those conference championship games. I know you do a rundown on what happened last week. You got that?
Extremely, extremely interesting games for for lack of a better word, on the AFC side and on the NFC side. Something else that I knew and forgot and had to have my memory jogged about the Super Bowl also is that how do they determine who the home team is? First, I started thinking it had to have something to do with the record, but then I remembered that they actually changed it somewhere way back, and they alternated the home team between NFC and AFC. So since it's actually at a neutral site, it doesn't really matter. But, I guess the home team gets the choice of the uniforms they want to wear, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the Chiefs are the home team by virtue of the NFC team, the Eagles being the home team last year. So anyway, let's talk about the quote unquote visitors first. And that would be the San Francisco or your San Francisco 49ers. Detroit at San Fran last week was actually a tale of two completely different halves for both teams. One team doing everything right in the first half, but not so much in the second half, and the other team vice versa. First half for Detroit went like this. They scored 3 touchdowns. They converted a field goal. They only punted once. Great first half. Looked like they couldn't do anything wrong. In the second half, they punted once. They turned the ball over on downs twice. That's going for it on fourth down and not getting it. And they lost a fumble. They did all that in the second half before they finally scored a touchdown with 56 seconds left in the game. And that was obviously too late to complete any kind of comeback, considering what the score was. And they ended up taking the L. The Niners, first half, got off to a really slow start. That and the fact that the Lions offense struck first on a really big play and didn't let up for the rest of the half, while defensively they were playing surprisingly well. When I say surprisingly well, what I really mean is they were playing a little bit over their heads in the first half, I do believe. But they caught you guys scuffling a little bit. The offense jumped on you, and the defense was able to settle in and get really comfortable. But, and y'all were down 24-7. It wasn't looking good. But coming out to the second half, the Niners' offensive onslaught brought the Lions' defense right back down to earth. And because we never called them a really good defense anyway. The Niners defense completely devastated the Lions game script. Their game script in the first half of what I would assume they hoped to be able to take through the entire game was to run the ball, pass the ball, run the ball, run the ball, pass the ball. They were in a really nice rhythm in the first half. Second half, Niners defense turned that around. They stopped the Lions on 4 of their 5 second half possessions and scored on every one of the possessions that they stopped them on. That's 4 stops, 4 scores for the Niners.
Wow.
Their offensive attack was balanced. They had 31 pass attempts and 33 rushing attempts. You know, during the course of the season, I talk about balanced offense all the time. That's very important. I think it's very important. And you can't be more balanced than that. 31 pass attempts, 33 rushing attempts. The 31 passes, I'm sorry, there were 20 completions out of the 31 passes for 267 and one touchdown. That touchdown went to Brandon Ayuk. And Brock Purdy had a couple of nice runs that may have surprised a few people, not me, because I've been watching him. I'm well aware of what this guy can do. He's got really good downfield awareness and pretty deceptive speed. He can turn it on a little bit when he's got some grass in front of him. Now, Christian McCaffrey basically carried the run game. He rushed for 90 yards and two solid touchdowns on 20 carries. Perfect for your starting running back. Deebo Samuel led all Niners receivers with 8 receptions on 9 targets for 89 yards. Defensively, they were solid as usual. They didn't make any really big splash plays, but they did force and recover Jahmyr Gibbs' fumble, and they did tackle pretty well overall, especially in the second half. So that's how I saw that game, and the Niners will be advancing to the Super Bowl. Now, Patrick Mahomes' first time on the road in the postseason took him to Baltimore. Not only did he have to take on the number one seed Ravens, but the Ravens came with the number one seed, the likely MVP, Lamar Jackson, the number one running game in the league, and the number one rated defense. I know they're number one in our points against category. They were number one in fantasy football, and I'm pretty sure they were number one or very close to number one in a lot of individual statistics, including yardage allowed. I'm not exactly sure where they ended up yardage allowed, but I would be fairly safe in saying they were in the top five. Um, so, what did Mr. Mahomes do? Well, he took the Chiefs' opening offensive drive, 86 yards in 10 plays, 5 runs, 5 passes. One of the passes was a touchdown pass to Jason Kelce. So they came right out and were impressive offensively, which a lot of Chiefs fans were hoping they would see because of how good the Baltimore defense was supposed to be. And when Baltimore came back on the next series and matched that score, the Chiefs then went back on offense, ground out a 75-yard, 16-play drive that took almost 10 minutes off the clock. And at that point, I'm telling you, I'm thinking to myself, these guys are proving right now that the Ravens defense really has no real answer for Kelce or Rashee Rice or Andy Reid's play call. They were on their heels the entire first half. The defense tightened up after the second score. They got a sack fumble. They forced 2 punts before halftime. They took a 17-7 lead into the half, and then they pitched a shutout in the second half until the Ravens finally got a field goal before the 2-minute warning, and that was all she wrote for the Ravens. That put the Chiefs into the Super Bowl, and that's where we're at.
That was fantastic. As you're talking, I'm having all of these thoughts about the games as, running through my head and just reminding me of certain things. We talked about, for example, Likely and them bringing back the starting tight end, and we didn't talk about it at length, but it flashed in my mind. Sometimes when you do that, it kind of throws things off a little bit, you know what I mean? But what's been kind of almost muscle memory for you now, you might have to just make a small adjustment. Doesn't seem like it should be, but I've always wondered about how those things can affect, the play calling and stuff. The question about the run game for the Ravens, goes back to the coaches. And their coaches, I believe, they got some coaches that are leaving for some potentially other jobs. I think their defensive coach is rolling.
Yeah, their DC is going to be the head coach. in Seattle.
Okay. Okay. So, that's all interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that, maybe and when we do the brain trust. So many things happening now, but it's wonderful to be able to sit and kind of see it now from the perspective that we, view things, which is net points. So, like for example, I was saying all along, I don't know why they would fire the Eagles offensive coordinator. They were the seventh ranked scoring offense in the league, and for a first year offensive coordinator, I don't think that's bad. Personally, I sure didn't see it as a fireable offense, when their defense was ranked like 24th, so it was like very obvious where they were having a problem. But, whatever the forces of opinion or whatever, everybody had to go. The OC, and we're from Philly, so how many people did we hear say it should have been Sirianni, the head coach that left, but he's still there, right? Anyway, the 49ers, Purdy, we looked at Purdy and we all got a chance to get together and actually watch a football. I think it's the first time I watched a football game with you in about 5 years.
In a long time. At least 5 years, if not longer.
So that was great fun. And we had Lawrence Edwards' brother there, but we were talking about Purdy being able and that line, and I was saying I think Purdy's as good as his line, but unless he starts to move, he has to move. And he started moving all right. He got those first down. Now I kind of was like, slide, Purdy, slide. I don't want to see Sam Darnold, but Purdy was getting that first down, and there wasn't no doubt about it. He was going for it, whether it's head first or whatever. He wasn't doing no early slide, get caught up short. So I had to give it to him, and people were saying, "Oh, he got a little bit of wheels there," So that was kind of fun to watch Purdy take off like that. So now we have a rematch, Benny, a rematch in a Super Bowl rematch, Chiefs and Niners. And the bias plus right now is favoring the Niners. We'll talk about the bias plus as it might look. Oh, I didn't do that, did I? No, but we did do the bias plus buster of the week. Speaking of those Chiefs, Benny, for the NFL Conference Championships, bias plus buster score of 19.6. Congrats to the Chiefs. Yeah, they were pretty big underdogs, weren't they? They were like at least a touchdown or something.
Well, they were statistically big underdogs because of what I mentioned about the Ravens. Best run game in the game, number one defense in almost every category.
Yep.
The number one defense all of a sudden didn't have a clue on how to stop Mr. Mahomes and what Mr. Reed was feeding to him over the speaker. And the number one run game never showed up.
And we have to admit, as much as we liked the Ravens linebacker,
Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton. Thank you. Kyle Hamilton, who seemed to be man up and one-on-one on Kelsey in a lot of those situations.
Early on, he was. I don't think so. I think they played more zone in the latter part of the game, or at least in the second half. Didn't do him any good. But he actually held it down pretty well. He made a lot of tackles. I know that. Okay. I don't have his specifics. Do I have it? I think I do have it.
And even when the ones that Kelsey caught on him, I had to admit that he was there. You know what I mean? In many cases, it wasn't like he just got
right. Oh, the first touchdown. That was a perfect throw by Mahomes. He threw that where nobody else could get it but Kelsey and maybe some worms in the ground. That's it. And Hamilton was all over him like a glove. He actually made 11 total tackles, which was only second to linebacker Roquan Smith, and he had 9 solo tackles. So that's a heck of a game for Kyle Hamilton. He made 1 tackle for loss, and he had 1 quarterback hit. That's all his own personal stats on defense. So
Nice,
it's not
nice.
like he didn't play well, but I
Yeah,
mean, when Kelsey and Mahomes get in a rhythm, man, it's tough for anybody to stop. I don't care who you are.
like even when the thing broke down, he just put it up there on the high arch. Kelsey
Right. Kelsey went and got it.
went and got it for him. So
Sometimes there's no defense for plays like that.
yeah, it's just gonna happen. That's one of the things I love about football is every play to some degree has to make up for how you screwed up on the play before. But it's just part of the game. And as a team, okay, it's like he just got cost us 15. All right, now we got to go to play. Give me the wide right shotgun. You know what I mean? So, we wasn't going to run that. We thought we were going to go I formation, but okay, you cost us 10. Now we got to go shotgun. And that's just how it is in football. You got to make up for the mistakes. And they
But
were
you got to make up for a great play of the other teammates.
sometimes, yeah, yeah,
You got
yeah.
to go to plan B. We were supposed to follow this play with this play, but they did something on that play before that we didn't expect them to be able to do. So now we got to go here.
Hey Ben, I know we'll talk about the actual Super Bowl next week, but it just struck me funny. You looked up during the game, and the commentator says, "Are they spying Purdy?"
Ridiculous.
Just the thought sounds hilarious. You know what I mean? Purdy has a spy. Now his brother might need a spy, from what I understand. He's like a serious dual threat quarterback, but that's another
Well,
conversation.
he's a dual threat quarterback. I don't know how serious he is.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen.
you've talked about him before. I do remember
Yep.
doing that. Yeah, yeah. And it wasn't nice either what you said about the
Eh.
kid. You will recognize it, ladies and germs, by this picture. Benny on football with the mic. It's a good old fashioned mic too, Benny. I don't know. It might be a new mic. It's got the little pad thing there. Anywho, yeah, this is what we looked like back in the day when we were actually playing some ball. Ben's coaching. I'm playing Madden. He's playing fantasy. We're just gonna go down real quick. This is this was interesting to me because I came on this article, Ben. If you look down here, WSJ.com. This is the Wall Street Journal writing this
The
article.
Wall Street Journal.
Writing this article about
They have a sports section.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a subscription and I'm going through it looking for other stuff, and I start seeing stuff like this. I'm like, holy mackerel. But he's absolutely right. And they give some serious stats about, when he is and is not in the game, how things go. They go a whole lot better when he's in there. I'll just put it that way. Now, you asked the question, Benny. Guess where you could have found the answer?
What was my question?
Barry on football is saying how the home team is decided in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, okay, great. There you go.
All
Well,
right.
I did find it there. Remember I said I wasn't sure and I found out?
Okay. All right. All right. Well, so it has to do um the even and odd number of the bowls. So NFC is even, right? Is that right? The NFC continues to give the home team tag. Wow, and even numbers.
AFC gets even. This is 20. Yeah, right.
AFC
2023.
gets the even. Okay.
So What number Super Bowl is it?
NFC gets the odd. NFC
Right.
gets the odd year. This is
Right.
even year, so it goes to the AFC. So did you see the little fracas between Mahomes and Kelsey and Justin Tucker?
Yeah, I wasn't really aware of this, and I kind of got bits and pieces of the end of a conversation. So what I'm trying to figure out is, was Mahomes and Kelsey playing catch and Tucker got close to them, or was he already kicking and they came over and got close to him?
Well, part of it had to do with where he had his equipment, and it was in their area where they were practicing.
Okay, but that wouldn't have been at the other end of the field. So somehow they were both on the same end of the field.
Right, he was on the Kansas City end of the field.
That's what I'm thinking
And they
because he
had
wants to
asked him
kick
to
at both
move his
goalposts.
equipment, and he said he did move his equipment, but he said, I guess they didn't like where I moved it to, so they moved it some more. I don't know why he was kicking on that side of the field. Maybe he was trying to go against.
Kickers always kick at both goalposts.
So well, there you go. So
Always. You have to check the wind, the sun, the everything.
so there you go. And I think what you just said so succinctly, I wish I had read in this article just that because I didn't see that said so succinctly. The kickers have to kick at both field goals. They got to see what it's like at both field goals.
Right.
You know. So crazy enough, crazy enough. All right. So
Oh man. I love this guy. Please remind me, what is his name? What's his name?
his
What
name is Sharon Moore.
Jerome Moore. I love this guy
Why do you love this guy?
because this guy is passionate. This guy loves Michigan and he loves his players and he loves Jim Harbaugh. This guy's passionate, man. I think he's the perfect choice. And I don't know nothing about him except for the fact that in the games where Harbaugh, specifically the Ohio State game, which is the no wait, was it the Ohio State game? No, it was the Notre Dame game. So there's two big games for Michigan football: Notre Dame and Ohio State, and sometimes if they play USC. Those games are bigger than every other game they ever have. The biggest game for Michigan is Ohio State. If they lose every game during the season and they beat Ohio State, they're still heroes. That's how big that rivalry is. And I'm sorry, I cannot specifically remember which was the first game that Harbaugh was suspended, but it was a big game. I think it was Notre Dame, and they
Oh
won the
yeah,
game.
now you're talking about the suspension. Okay.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. So after he was suspended for the game, they won this game. So after the game, the reporters run to him because he was the interim head coach while Harbaugh was suspended. And he starts crying and cussing and oh, we love you. This is for you. This is for you, Coach Harbaugh. Yo, he lost it. It
I
was
kind of
beautiful.
remember seeing little, maybe it was a clipping in the news or something.
Yeah, it was beautiful, man. I was like, wow, I like that guy.
And all snotty over Harbaugh, eh? Michigan through and through.
Yep.
That's hilarious. My family's from Ohio. They could care less. They're hoping he fails.
Of course. They
They're
hey,
Ohio.
they don't care if Donald Trump was coaching Michigan.
But it's funny because just being on social media, I see my cousins, the girls, jumping on these Ohio State games and posting stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've never heard her talk football in the least, but she's pumping this Ohio State game. Hilarious, hilarious. Oh, we say good morning. Yeah, okay, we have to do that. So Ben, the thought came, I put it out on a poll, didn't have a lot of response. One guy said something, and it wasn't you, it was somebody else that said something.
Somebody besides me said something?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Well, that's me right there.
That's you. And you know something? Maybe he said it on my personal page.
Okay.
Because I shared this to my page.
Okay.
Okay, so but you mentioned
What
that
did he think?
it took well I thought he said yeah, I thought he thought he did damage it. But you're saying it took Peyton Manning 9 seasons to win a conference championship, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's a good reference point. Good reference point. All right, well, I think we've pretty much covered everything up to this particular point. Generally, once we get here, we go back to the front and we go, unless you have some last words.
Last words? Oh, no. I mean, if you're a real football fan, you're looking forward to this Super Bowl because I think we pretty much have the two best teams. I'm sure there's some people in the Baltimore area that would disagree, but they didn't get the job done when they had the opportunity. Therefore, we have the two best teams. Without a doubt, we have two of the greatest offensive minds, head coaches who call their own offensive plays going against each other. This for that alone, this should be a great game. I think Shanahan is, I hate to throw the word genius around because they like to call, Sean McVay is the boy wonder and all that stuff. Okay. But McVay and Shanahan come from the same tree, the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. Uh, Andy Reid comes from the Mike Holmgren tree, which goes all the way back to your guy. So,
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh, exactly. So, again, you got two excellent coaching trees that begat two excellent offensive minds, really, really studious guys who call an offensive game extremely well and have the weapons to do so. That's very important. Very important. Both teams have the offensive weapons to do damage. So, if nothing else, this game is going to be exciting. Again, I think the difference is going to be defense. One of these defenses is going to have to step up big time.
All right. Big time. And for Ben and Barry on Football, where you can find us is at www.benandbarryonfootball.com. Thanks for following. Please leave comments and suggestions. Our hashtag is football is life. Benny, peace.